potential overreactions. I want to start off with the Giannis deal, the Giannis stuff, the Bucks stuff. It's a freaking mess. Another meltdown last night. They lose to the Grizzlies. And hours before that, guys, we got our first major trade rumbling, seeds of a rumbling, something of the season. My pal Bill Richter over at CBS Sports reported that teams are preparing for a potential Giannis Antetokounmpo trade demand, or maybe just preparing for the Bucks to get desperate enough to do it. It's not clear exactly what, but Bill Richter said this, quote, "There's a rising sense of confidence that if things go badly in Milwaukee, that Giannis could be available for trade, could force his way out of Milwaukee in the next year." He also said, he wrote that teams are circling and hopeful, or excuse me, that was a Western Conference team executive telling Bill Richter teams are circling and hopeful. And another executive saying, "I wouldn't be surprised if it happened by the trade deadline." Guys, this feels really, really early for all this. And yet at the same time, not, because it's not about just this last week. It's about where the Bucks have been over the last couple of years. So Raja, first thing that hit you when you saw or heard this Pina wrote some overreactions earlier this week. Giannis being traded was not one of them. But is it too soon for us to all hit the panic button on the Bucks?
Yeah, my first reaction was like, Jesus Christ, that's where we are already. Like, we're there 5 games in. And then, Bill Richter is my guy. So I worked with Bill for a long time. He's a friend of mine. So if he's saying it, I mean, there are rumblings out there, and then I guess it's not too early. But my first reaction is, Jesus, this is early. And so I'm inclined to take that stance 5 games in. But the more I think about the Bucks, the more I think 5 games, even though it's not a huge, sample size this year, I think it's enough to indicate that they haven't fixed whatever it is that was fully off. You would think that 2 players, and I would just use their 2 stars, Giannis and Dame. Let's say for whatever reason last year it didn't look like it worked great. Dame had a lot of stuff going on. Sometimes it's harder than you think to integrate 2 stars into a lineup in an effective, efficient way. I'll give you the year last year, but like, we're coming out this year, and you should start to see the fruits of it. You should start to see the complementing of one another. You should start to see them playing off one another in a way that would project, and you don't yet. And so
Pina,
you could be worried about that.
Sometimes we do this based on record alone. And it might be an overreaction because, you know what, a team can go 1-4 at any other stretch in the season, and it's not necessarily an all-out panic. So I try not to overreact to the first week of the season based on just a record. But like, I think this is more about, and I've said this about the Nuggets too, to use this phrase, it's more about the fundamentals. And if the fundamentals actually seemed a little suspect anyway, like, what have you seen so far from the Bucks, Michael, that would either support the idea that it's panic time already?
I wouldn't say it's panic time, but I also
down.
Wouldn't say it's time to calm down and everyone should wait this out. I think this team is bad. They rank 28th in net rating. Their offense is atrocious. Their defense is completely incapable. Teams are just hunting Dame Lillard possession after possession. I mean, last night you saw Scottie Pippen Jr. enter the game, and they're bringing him into the action with John Morant, and Dame is just completely helpless. You have Cam Thomas throwing an alley-oop lob off the backboard to Nick Claxton. Like, teams are just punking the Milwaukee Bucks this season, and it's all happening with, yes, Chris Middleton's been out, hasn't played yet, of course, but it's all happening with Giannis statistically having a marvelous season, and he's getting to the rim at will, dunking on everybody, just being his physically dominant self. But the chemistry, as Raja just alluded to, the chemistry between him and Dame just is not there at all. And Doc Rivers is staggering them already. I think you need to play these 2 as much as possible and develop a 2-man game that you can go to in crunch time, or just improve throughout the season and have it evolve. And we haven't really seen that. And so that's discouraging and a little worrying. But I'm not going to say they should look to trade this dude yet. He's still in his prime and one of the best players alive. But it's at the same time, I just don't see them like winning a championship or contending for a championship as currently built.
Staggering is staggering. Like at this point, no, it is. It's staggering. Like you would think, I mean, yeah, man, if we have 3 guys like that, maybe we figure out how to stagger them. You have 2 dudes that, are supposed to be a winning combo at the championship level. Our objective isn't staggering them early in the season. Like that we're not worried about that. So that in and of itself is staggering.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're looking to we're going to force feed this. If I got to run you 2 in pick and roll 75% of the games and we lose them all, I don't give a shit. We're going to figure this out. So forgive me, but that like the fact that we're, that's what we're talking about and they're trying to figure out how to stagger them. That in and of itself is
as I'm sometimes prone to do, say, no big deal. Let's all calm down a little bit. Like let's apply some nuance here. If I were going to try to like make a more optimistic case, or at least a case for not freaking out yet and trading people, I would say, hey, listen, Dame just got there a year ago and it was under really strange circumstances at the last minute. And then they fired your buddy Adrian Griffin, and then they brought in Doc, and this is Doc's first training camp with them. And Chris Middleton is still out, and they've got some new pieces that they're incorporating. Like, chemistry takes time. That would be like my reasonable pushback. I'd say, chemistry takes time. And even for Giannis and Dame, with their first training camp under Doc, shouldn't we kind of back off? Is that reasonable, or is that just like Pollyannish at this point?
No, I think to some degree it's reasonable, because I'm with you and Michael. I'm not panicking, right? But because, this is 5 games, and, maybe you'll tell me that there was something going on behind the scenes through this 5-game sample or 6 games, whatever it is that I couldn't account for. And, through 10, we look different. But I do think there is cause for concern. I'm not saying panic, but there is cause for real concern. I would just say from base basketball level, you walk in a gym with 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 11, 9 and 10's a little young, but like, let's say 11, 12, when kids can really start playing pick and roll a little bit, the 2 best players fucking figure that out. They'll take 3 other kids that cannot play and just move them off to the side, and they work in pick and roll. Like, good players figure that out. So this kind of the seeds of the doubt are that those 2 don't seem to really, they're too good individually to not blend. And if they're not blending, then I think you have a bigger problem. So the other
thing is, like, Lillard himself, I'm trying to find the quotes as we talk here. Lillard's quotes after the loss last night were kind of alarming, because it sounded like he wasn't actually sure, like, whether this makes sense, if I could sum it up that way. Like, his quote, I heard it earlier, I haven't found it yet, but it was basically the effect of, like, he's used to playing a certain way, and it's like, wait, hold on, it's been a year now of trying to adjust to Giannis. Is this an indication that, like, Dame's never going to adjust? And the thing is, like, guys, we've all seen versions of this, right? Like, I watched, and Steve Francis got to the Knicks and him and Marbury trying to figure it out, and it's like, no, these are 2 guys who just both need the ball in their hands all the time. Certain guys in this league, I think Iverson was this way too, especially like ball dominant guards. And Dame is not like any of those 3. He's a different style, but some guys never figure out how to be the complementary star or co-star or whatever other role that is not just primary high usage go-to player. And so now I'm wondering, like, Dame wanted out. Dame wanted out of Portland. I gave all the benefit of the doubt to the idea that he would figure out, as the older of the 2 stars, how to mesh with Giannis. Like, Pina, what are we seeing in like Dame? I don't know, game, body language, anything? Like, like you mentioned him being targeted. Okay, yeah, fine. He's always been like a liability defensively, but you're supposed to overcome that by being this absolutely killer pick and roll 2-man game.
Yeah, there was a sequence last night.
I'm sorry, which, like, at that point, you're just screwed.
By the way, like, losing to the Memphis Grizzlies when they don't have Desmond Bane and they're completely depleted with their bench is, like, inexcusable. And, like, that wasn't even a competitive basketball game. But there was a sequence last night where, I'm not really big on your turn, my turn as a point of criticism over 100 possessions in a game. But there was a sequence where Giannis dribbles up, doesn't even think about passing the ball, and bricks a 2-point jumper, which is just not what you want if you're Giannis or if you're the Bucks. Very next possession, Dame dribbles the ball up the court, doesn't look at any of his teammates, bricks a 2-point jumper. And I'm just like, it's incredibly frustrating if I was a Milwaukee Bucks fan to watch a sequence like that, because there wasn't even an attempt for them to come together and use just like synergistic skill sets that should complement each other perfectly. We haven't seen Dame set, according to Sport Radar, we haven't seen Dame set one ball screen for Giannis Antetokounmpo this season. And that is like obvious. It's an obvious inverted pick and roll that should have a lot of success. You see Pat Connaughton has used it for years with Giannis to let him get downhill or force a switch and get a mismatch and then work out of that. So I don't know. It's like there should be more will from both parties. I mean, there was another play. I know I'm rambling a little bit, but there was another play last night that was disturbing where, Giannis calls up Brook Lopez to run a pick and roll, and it's Jaren Jackson Jr. and Zach Edey, and they just switch it, and Giannis is up against Edey, and the floor is, there's no driving lanes, and he pulls up and he misses a jumper, and it's like, Dame's just standing in the corner. So I don't understand what the process is. It just looks very broken when I watch them play.
Yeah, I didn't watch last night's game. Sorry, trick or treating, but
you were like trick or treating with an iPad in your hands, walking around like watching the game.
No, I'm not that dude. But I'm kind of mentally picturing what you're talking about as you're going through it, Michael. And the first thing that popped in my mind is what we talked about last pod briefly, Howard, which was the coaching change, how it could affect a team when you don't really change pieces that much. And, not that Milwaukee didn't change some pieces, but we referenced the Lakers and how the ball is moving, the people are moving, and it feels different when you watch it. And I did watch the Bucks. I forget who they were playing. You don't get that feel. I actually feel like when I watched them, under Budenholzer, when they were more championship level, even though it might finish with Giannis or finish with Chris Middleton or Drew, the ball moved a little bit. People moved a little bit. And again, I don't have stats to back that up. Like I didn't do the numbers on that, but that's what I was feeling watching them play during that heyday in a way that I did not see the other night. It was very much like Michael was kind of talking about. And I guess when you incorporate a Dame Lillard as a skill set, and you take Drew away from it, you're probably going to be more static because he does need the ball in that way. But in the possessions that we're not going to be static and we're not going to play pick and roll, and I'm talking about like there shouldn't be many of the ones you're describing where we're coming down just pulling up a jump shot with nothing. But we should be in pick and roll with either one. I don't care. Giannis with the ball, Dame with the ball. Those two, again, we're going to stay in that until we get that right. But if we're not going to be in that, let's just move a little bit. Let's get the ball moving. Let's get people moving. And then let's finish it with one of you two on a catch and a closeout or, whatever your advantage is after the ball's moved and people have moved. And now let's play. And that really does solve a lot of problems. I mean, it sounds simple. It sounds like, everyone in their mom would know that. But it really does change the math for defenses. And then, we're talking about percentage points of effectiveness offensively. Like you're looking for any little advantage. You got to get it moving.
You know what? Middleton gets healthy. He's a really key piece. He's a two-way player. He stabilizes their defense, gives them some, presence on the perimeter, gives them some balance. Maybe everything falls into place then. But I can't even say that with a straight face, in part because also Middleton could come back and then be gone again after 3 more games because dude's always hurt. But it also it feels like the disconnect or lack of synergy, to use Michael's term, between Giannis and Dame. Like, I don't know that Middleton changes that. I don't know that time changes that. And, time is usually the ultimate answer for chemistry concerns, right? I just need more reps together. But like, by the way, while they're trying to do this, while they're trying to smooth all this out, the schedule is fucking crushing. They're about to play, starting tomorrow, Cleveland twice, home and away. Utah's a soft one, but then at the Knicks, again, then home against Boston. Like that's, and then it falls off a little after that, Toronto, Detroit, Charlotte. But just even the next, 4 of the next 5 games, like they might be 2-8 and, more reps, but more reps while you're all grumbling and having to like fend off everybody else saying you're already done. And the league is already circling like buzzards trying to pick off your franchise star, which leads me to this. So one, I when I saw Bill Ryder's report yesterday, I poked around myself, and I went 2 for 2 with executives that I texted. When I said, "Did you see the report? What do you think?" I actually had to count the number of zeros, and it was 10,000% true, is what he texted back to me. There was a lot of zeros that I had to figure out. The other one said, not a surprise, not the first time it's come up. Thinks that Giannis prefers a bigger market, thinks that Giannis prefers East Coast over West. Mentioned Brooklyn and Miami as potential suitors, which was also in Bill Ryder's report. But it doesn't sound like Giannis himself is actually agitating yet. And guys, in the absence of Giannis actually saying, it's done, we're cooked, I want out. If I'm the Bucks and I think things are that badly broken, isn't the first move to trade Dame or to see if there's a market still for Dame?
What is the market for Dame?
I don't know. I didn't ask that. I didn't ask that one of the 2 execs I texted with yesterday, but I don't know. But is Miami still desperate enough? Could you imagine like the Heat going, oh, hi, Milwaukee, who stole Dame from under nose. Oh, now you want our help to take him off your hands. That would be an interesting conversation. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for. I don't know. What do you guys think? Real quick, any chance of a Dame trade? And would that fix anything? I guess it depends on what you get back.
Yeah, it would depend largely on what you get back. I'm with Michael. Like, I just don't know. And that's a terror. I always feel for these dudes who are in a spot. Maybe they didn't win a championship. But they've been great there, right? Like, and then you take them out of that spot and you think that if you plug them into another team that's like on the verge of a championship, it's going to work, and it doesn't work. And it doesn't look good. And then, it starts to kind of almost be like a, more of a reflection on them than maybe the situation or whatever. So I worry about the market for Dame. I really, if you're at a point in your career as a relatively small guard, I still love his game, but like it starts to be a conversation in front offices about like, what is that? Like, what is it now? What is it going to represent for us in terms of winning the championship? I don't have the answer. I'm not in those offices anymore.
Next year, and then he has a $58.4 million player option that I would assume he's picking up during his age 36 season. I don't think so. And yeah, to your point, what Raja just said, like he's 34.
So the answer is he ain't worth
undersized, and the defense is only going to get worse. And if the offense is heading in the wrong direction, then it's tough. I mean, you would think that in this environment with Giannis and with Brook Lopez, that his defensive shortcomings wouldn't be so glaring. But if it's not really working in Milwaukee, where they've had this long-held recipe for success on that end, then why would who is going to take him in and solve that problem? I don't see it.
Yeah. It's even if you start doing the mental exercise of like, where would you send him? I have no idea where that would be given age and contract and fact that he does not, it's not like he's going to just go be somebody's spot up shooter, as the third man, the third star somewhere. Like, I don't know. I feel like this is one of those quandaries that
losing
may not have an easy or any solution.
I don't know what to say. Wait for Middleton. That's your only option right now.
Yeah. I think probably if you gave them truth serum, Mike Budenholzer and Adrian Griffin are both just kind of maybe not chuckling, just feeling a sense of satisfaction. Like, maybe the issues weren't coaching.